Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. We're excited to have you. I'm Brian Saperstein. That's Rob Vale. Rob, you want to tell everyone what we're doing today?
Well, I do, Brian, but first I got to get something off my chest. I'm a little angry, if truth be told. Friday was April 1st, so I woke up, launched my Twitter app. I was looking forward to the breadth of hilarity and many japes that the, not just Formula One teams would come up with, but a whole treasure trove of things to be amused at, see the idiots that fall for all the obvious April Fools. What seemed to transpire, and maybe this is me being old and not getting people trolling each other and jumping on the back of things, that every team just announced that one of their driver was retiring at the end of the season. I saw one that said Lewis is retiring at the end of the season. There was a Danny Rick is retiring at the end of the season. There was a Vettel is retiring at the end of the season. I'm like, seriously, guys, you've got no imagination. You're just going to sit there and say one of your drivers is retiring at the end of the season, and that is the sum total of your April Fool hilarity. I was upset, Brian.
Well, I saw something that said we're going to be racing in Las Vegas, and that must have been April Fool's, right?
Well, let's hold that one back. But was it just me? Did you see anything else there? You're our Twitter intern that has kind of got his finger on the pulse of all things tweets, but I didn't see anything good. Nothing.
No, I didn't either. Not from the teams, at least. Some individual folks had some funny April Fool's stuff, but no, I didn't see anything epic coming out of F1 Twitter on April 1st. But that's okay.
That's
not all right. Yeah, it's okay.
It's not. It's tradition.
We look for F1 to provide us, on-track entertainment, not on Twitter entertainment. We can live with what we live with.
Well,
but Vegas, baby. Vegas, baby. Vegas, baby.
We're going to Vegas, Mike. Vegas! You think we get there by midnight? Money, we're going to be up 500 by midnight.
Yeah! Vegas!
Vegas, baby. Vegas!
You know it. It's right. Vegas, baby!
Someone's a little too excited and has jumped the gun there because it was back to me to introduce what we're doing in today's show, but I think...
Vegas, baby!
Okay, so there may be a chance that something to do with Las Vegas features in the first part when we do news and social.
A little
maybe,
bit.
Just maybe. Then we're going to move on to another episode of Vale's Tales, being as we don't have a race to review this week, so we've taken some listener feedback and we will be looking at the career of Sterling Moss.
Amazing
We then
career.
have a little bit of a review of just the season so far, even though it's only 2 races, but we thought, what the heck, let's review the 2 races from both what we think's happened and what's happened in the world of fantasy, and then a preview of the Australian Grand Prix, followed by the inaugural episode of Rob versus Brian, the game show. So, Anyway, before...
Marv Albert is excited. He is ready to go. The game show is queued. I cannot wait. You're going down, Vale. You're going down.
We shall see, sir. We shall see. Anyway, let's get back to news and social because there really hasn't been much happening this week. I think it was pretty dead of detail. Maybe there was an announcement about a new race somewhere, Brian?
I mean, 2023, so next year in November, night race in Vegas, baby! Vegas! Just amazing. So exciting. And a couple things to tackle here from a couple of different angles, right? Obviously, one, let's talk a little bit about the race, what we know so far. So, again, it's a street track down a good portion of the Las Vegas Strip, kind of turns, and then circles around behind some of the hotels, hits near the Eye and a couple other of the components of Vegas, baby, Vegas, and then comes back around down the Strip past the Bellagio fountains. Lawrence Barretto on Formula One on the YouTube channel with ESPN's Nicole Briscoe actually drove the course. There's so much to this to unpack. But one thing I do want to talk, just again, course-wise and the race, I don't think we've seen a date. The rumor, again, the Vegas rumor was we all knew it was being planned, right? So it was just the confirmation of that rumor. But what's really cool and super exciting is it's a night race in Vegas. And so what I did learn through my detailed journalism of having drinks and watching the internet is that it appears it's a 10 p.m. local start in Vegas. And because of the time zone differences, it's a Saturday night race. So that throughout Europe and the rest of the world, it's on Sunday, as it would normally be. So here in the States, 10 p.m. Vegas time, so it's 11 for me. 10 p.m. Vegas time, Saturday night. And the second part of this piece is there is a rumor, now this one may be not correct, we'll find out, that it could be Thanksgiving weekend. So kind of the third or so weekend in November. Just amazing. I've got like 10 friends who are texting me furiously that will be going, which means I probably won't. But so it's just so exciting. Vegas, baby. Rob, what are your thoughts? Because I got a couple more pieces, but I want to give you a chance before I monopolize the Vegas.
No, there's a couple of pieces I want to talk about this. Well, let's stick to the race first before we get to the bit that kind of made me a little bit disappointed with some of the reaction to this. And we'll move on to that in a second. But two things around the race itself. One, you are getting fined for any more occurrences of Vegas, baby. You've used your quota already in the first 5 minutes. Okay, that's done now. Just no more Vegas, baby. Okay.
There is no such thing as any quota relating to that.
Well,
as an American, I can say there isn't. There is most certainly not. You can do it as much as you need.
I've checked your amendments, and it's not in there. The Vegas baby is not one of your. Anyway, so looking at the race, I was same as you. I'd kind of looked at the layout. There was people going, "Oh, it's another street race. That means it'll just be. It's not going to be great racing." But there was a couple of people that were looking at it and saying, "No, actually." Okay, you can only work with what you've got from a street. You're not going to go and start demolishing blocks to put in a racetrack. You're going to work with what you've got. But what they've got at the moment looks fairly decent. Okay, not kind of bespoke, laid-out racetrack, but we've got some straights. We've got some very long straights. We've got some high braking zones into a couple of corners. We've got some twisty-turny little technical sections, and then we kind of sweep back round again for another set of straights. So there's braking zones, there's room for overtaking, there's straights. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think it could have been a much worse layout of a track. So I think I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too, and it's actually worth noting they're going to resurface the entire set of the race course, so that's not a problem. And the thing that is important that we haven't touched on is in 81 and 82, F1 came to Vegas for 2 races, and they're widely regarded as the worst track ever raced. It was the Caesars Palace parking lot. I know the Brits like to call it a car park. We call them parking lots here in the States. And I'm not kidding. It was in the parking lot. It was like a Z. It was like watching Adam Sandler try to write risotto in cursive in Billy Madison. And so it was a Z, and then it had kind of a straight that went back to the top, and then they did the Z again, and they did it 2 years in a row, and it looked terrible, boring. And so we're out of the parking lot, we're onto the strip. Vegas, baby!
So I just then want to hit the bit that, and you can probably, I'd like to hear your view on this as a bona fide American. American. But the reaction to it kind of annoyed me. So 2 things about it. I've been living here long enough now that when I see lazy journalism from the rest of the world say, "Oh, Americans, typical Americans," I'm like, do you realise how big this country is? I'm not really sure there is such thing as a typical American. There's a gazillion. Anyway, I won't even get drawn into that one. So that kind of annoys me. Then you get the whole, they just want to put a show on. I'm like, well, I like being entertained. I like having, the glamour and the glitz, as long as it isn't all just for nothing and the race sucks. Okay, yeah, I would get it, but it just hit me as two-faced, because the same people that will champion Monaco as being the oldest and greatest, glamour and glitz, but then at the same time will go, yeah, but the race isn't very good, but we love Monaco! Monaco's glamour and glitz. I'm like, but that's all this is going to be, with potentially better racing. So that annoyed me. And then the bit and then I'll let you come in, Brian, is the bit where it then starts getting down to, but now that, America have got 3 races now. They've got 3 races, and why should one country have all those races? I'm like, well, again, we do need to take size into consideration here. If we just looked at the globe and we forgot about lines that have been arbitrarily drawn to denote the outlines of countries, when we look at the spread of distance between races, America hasn't exactly got them all in kind of like driving distance where you could sort of like drive to one and walk to the next track. I mean, we are talking like, in European standards, we're talking multiple countries exist between the same distance that exists between the races over here. But yeah, that just kind of disappointed me, some of the wanting to throw stones at it before it's even been held its first race. So I'd like to get your view on that, Brian, as to, do you care? I mean, you're American, you probably just brush it all off, but...
Well, so there's 3 parts to this argument, right? And so let's kind of take them one at a time. The first one, which I think does hold water, is the idea of you have to replace it on the calendar. Something's being lost. And so whether it's the German Grand Prix, not coming back, or Paul Ricard, who knows what race is going to come off the calendar for this in 2023, that's a downer. Like, I do get that.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I respect everyone's opinion. And when we find out what the calendar is for 23 and we see what race isn't on it, and there's options, right, with which contracts are up. So I mentioned a couple things there. There's more to it. But yeah, I get that. Like, I do get that. So that's part one. I do respect that opinion. The second piece is the Americanization, as at Schleif Preferred said on Twitter. It goes by Stephanie. She said it's the Americanization of it that's getting some people as well, and it's not sitting right. I don't get what that means. Like, I don't get what that means. Is it the glitz and glamour, the cheesiness of Vegas? Because to your point, there's a restrained version of it with Monaco. And all these night races that we see throughout the globe now, that's what this is. But it's going to be with the greatest backdrop we've ever seen, because the hotels are near the strip. The fountains will be going. The neon will be bright. It will be amazing. As a driver, it might actually be distracting. But I think it's going to be a really great spectacle. But here's the thing. It goes back to how good the race is. And the course looks pretty good. So to me, the stuff around the race really shouldn't bother someone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't get that part. I don't think that argument holds water in my book. So again, replacing a race, okay. It's too American or glitzy. Come on now, that one doesn't make sense. And then America having 3 races, the third argument. I just would like to give you a little note for everyone listening here and around the globe. I live outside Chicago. Chicago is the 3rd largest city in the U.S. Just as a note, for me to drive to Miami, a drive, because this will give us a relative distance, it's 20 hours to the Miami GP. 20 hours. To the Circuit of the Americas, it's 17 hours, which is the race in Texas, in Austin. For me to get to Vegas, it's not even measured in hours anymore. It's a day and 2 hours, according to Google Maps. A day and 2 hours for me to get to Vegas. These places aren't close together. And America is a large country. And just for reference, if you lived in Paris, right in the middle of Paris, to get all the way to Turkey for the Istanbul Park race, to the Turkish Grand Prix, it's a day and 3 hours. And people would say that's so far away. That's what it is for me to get to Vegas. So, I look at it, it's the closest race to me is actually in Montreal. It's only 14 hours away from my house. So, I don't agree with that part either, and the complaint of America having 3. I would actually add that America's, probably the fastest growing fan base of F1 fans. And unfortunately, F1's about making money. It's not a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
So I don't get that argument either. So in terms of what's lost from the calendar, get it. The other 2 don't get it.
So before we move on and put this one to bed then, one thought I had, and see what I haven't even told you about this, is let's see what you think about this one, is that there are a lot of tracks now, and 24, people keep saying we could have more races. I don't know that we could go beyond it. We'll have to see how this year goes. In fact, we're not even going to have 24 with Russia being dropped, right? Unless they
we'd had 23 and then Russia's dropped, but it
that's
may
right,
be replaced.
23. Yep. Okay, so if they get to a good bank of 25, 26, 27 tracks, why not just start maybe even doing like, rather than sign all these tracks up for 10-year contracts, start breaking them into kind of like rotations where this year we're going to go to this 23 and then it kind of moves to the right. One of them drops off, the next one comes in. So you'll get a run of X number of years as you cycle around, because there'll be a tipping point where they can't just keep adding more circuits to the calendar. You don't want to lose tracks forever. Now, unfortunately, I think that's the romantic idea because, to your point, this is all about money, and a lot of the tracks are dropping off because they won't pay the money to keep up to the levels that the FIA wants. So,
I mean, that's why Abu Dhabi is last every year. They pay extra money for that. So yeah, exactly. I think it's the money. I mean, it's a great idea. And when COVID happened and they found some courses they hadn't been at but were still level 1 and ready to go, that was awesome. I loved it. It was better than rerunning the same course twice, which I'm not a big fan of. So, great point. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what happens. I'm really looking forward to next year, though. I gotta say, is the dirty side, America's leading F1 podcast. We are excited to have 3 races officially scheduled for 2023 in America. Gonna be amazing.
It just adds an extra incentive for us to keep this going for at least another year, because if there's even the minuscule of chances that me and you can get along to Vegas, then we have to keep this thing going just for that, right? So,
I mean, I would be in your ear the whole time. Vegas, baby, Vegas. You might actually punch me after a while, but it's worth it.
That's true. Anyway, Anyway, okay, so that's enough
Moving
on
on,
Vegas.
yeah.
Moving on for other news. We had the good news that Vettel is not retiring, according to the lame April Fool joke, but he's actually back to drive in the Aston in Australia. So that can only be good news because they've sucked so far. So I'm not saying that was the Hulk's fault, but it was the Hulk's fault to some degree.
Interesting. Lance Stroll wasn't lighting the world on fire in that car.
No,
and that's his car.
I know, but anyway, the lead driver is coming back. Let's see if there really is any pace in that Aston. We've seen from some other teams that K-Mag seems to be getting better pace than Mick, so maybe Vettel can be the one to pull a tune out of the Aston. I'm not sure, but we shall see.
Well, and I'm excited for him. It'll be nice to see the 5 out there running around in Australia for sure. So that'll be fun. The other news that I saw that was pretty interesting, and this one, again, I don't know where to kind of understand this one. Volkswagen Group is likely to give the green light for Porsche and Audi to make their entry into Formula One after a meeting next week. Was this an April Fool's joke on me that I just didn't get? Did it pass my censor? Because I've seen this story before. That's the only reason I gave it credence. Is that this wasn't, and it wasn't on April 1st, but was this an early joke? I mean, did someone get me here, or have you read this
No.
too?
Well, I haven't read it, but that's against the rules of you can't go early on April Fool's jokes. That's just against the the testament of the April Fool that's in the stone tablet from many years ago. You can't go early and you can't go late. It has to be April 1st. So no, I'd seen this story as well, and it's been a rumoured for a while now that one or both of these are going to come on. Whether that means that someone has to drop out, whether the grid could get any bigger, we kind of debated that before. There is room on the grids. I think we've said that the biggest there's ever been is 24 cars on the
And I think there's space for 2 or 3 more teams. And Andretti, we already saw Andretti Global's interest in checking all the boxes and whatever else they said in their little tweet. So it'll be fascinating, I guess, to watch to see if these teams come in. I mean, I hate to do this, but we know why, right? Money. I mean, this F1 is growing like crazy, and teams are trying to get in. You watch the value of sports teams in the U.S. just have skyrocketed in the last 10 years, and everyone's looking to try to capitalize, I think, on the F1, appreciation vehicle. So I would love to see it. It would be cool to have additional teams, but I guess we'll wait and see what happens. As everybody may know, I'm a big fan as well. We're working on Team Daihatsu here at Dirty Side. We're participating with Daihatsu, and we're going to actually sponsor them when they get in. And so I don't know if people are aware of that, but this is not a charade. For all car lovers who understand the reference to the make and model, you enjoyed that. For everyone else, it was just a joke.
Right, okay. Moving on. What else we got, Brian, before we move on
a couple
to the
last things
tales?
on social. Ferrari has some of for years they've had some of my favorite sort of social videos. YouTube, the C Squared Challenge. It was kind of a music connection game with Charles and Carlos. It was round 1 for this year's C Squared, and Charles won. It was fun. Short. It's only like 3 minutes. Check it out on Ferrari's YouTube. Lewis today posted on his Instagram that he went skydiving. And he did a bunch of flips and kind of circled around and had a great time up there. Often in contracts, they have things like that as being no good. So I wonder if Toto watched that and said, hold on a second. Lewis, did you get my email? That is not allowed. So it was curious, but he was not tandem. I mean, he went by himself, and he was really having a good time. And one other note, our old Formula One driver, Roman Grosjean, who's in IndyCar now, posted a video yesterday on his channel about the differences that he sees between IndyCar and F1. It's about 8 minutes. It's actually really fun to watch, and he really gives his perspective on some of the differences, just from pit stops to the car structure, to racetracks. If you have about 8 minutes and you're kind of curious, we've covered it a little, but Roman, who's driven both recently, gives his perspective. And then the last thing I had before we get to Sir Sterling is a couple friends of mine sent me texts over the last week, and it was fun to watch. So someone sent a text out that said Formula One Funko Pops are available for pre-order. And for everyone who doesn't know what a Funko Pop is, it's like a little doll or statue of a person, but they have big old heads, and they make Funko Pops for everything, for all these different people and all these different things. And they showed Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes. And one of my friends who has listened to the pod, he writes back, Well, Bottas isn't on that team anymore. Oh, well. And then he goes, listen to me, things I would not have known a few months ago. So in a similar note, my buddy was in Miami, a different friend, someone unrelated, was in Miami with his son looking at colleges. And he said, I'm in Miami at a sports bar and I'm watching F1 racing. And I only noticed it because I looked up on the TV and I saw Max Verstappen's name. That's a name I never would have known without you, much less Lewis Hamilton. So it's great to hear that people are kind of exploring and having fun with F1 and listening in, and we appreciate that. And I just ask everyone who's kind of had some fun listening, share the pod with your friends. Let's keep it going. This is awesome. We're having the best time, and we appreciate having you along. And now it is time for one of our favorite episodes, Vale's Tales. Rob, why don't you tell us what we'll be learning today?
Well, I'm kicking myself that we still haven't got the Vale's Tales music sorted. You got your SAP stats. I've got to work on some Vale's Tales music.
Do you want me to take over and create some music for you for next time? Or?
No. This needs to be some kind of like English country pub type music. So you're not going to understand what that means.
Oh boy.
Right? So, I know. Yeah. Anyway, Vale's Tales. In response to a couple of listeners who suggested this one, it's Sterling Moss, or to be correct, Sir Sterling Moss. We thought we'd take a look at his career. I've got to be honest, I'm more looking forward to getting towards the end of it, where we were looking at all the different quotes that are attributed to him, because this guy has got the best quotes from any racer, I think, that whenever we've been doing this researching, I've never had this kind of like deluge of, oh my gosh, look at this. You could have a whole book, and maybe there is a book of Sterling Moss quotes. I don't know, but listen to that, because that bit is fantastic. But let's kind of crack on through kind of his career. So he's born way back when in 1929, kind of family of kind of racers. His dad was a dentist, but actually had been 16th in the 1924 Indy 500, which, I mean, that's quite a clash, isn't it? Yeah, I'm a dentist, but just going to pop over and do the Indy 500. And his mother had entered pre-war hill climbing events, that's pretty cool, having a mom that goes hill climbing.
Yes, so cool. So cool.
And he got his first car at age 9, an old Austin 7. I had to Google an Austin 7, and I think it's pretty fair to say that the chances of him turning into a race driver after being given that. But then again, he was only 9, so yeah. But he was an active racer from 1948 to 1962. I feel like I'm going through SAP stats now, Brian, and should have led this in. But I know you've got some music coming later, but I'll let you take up the mantle in a second. But here I wanted to just say he won 212 of the 529 races that he entered. And at the height of the busiest years of racing, he's entering 62 races per year.
62 races a year. There's 52 weeks a year, just for everyone to remember that.
It's absolutely nuts. Yeah, and he had 16 F1 race wins. But when I started looking at it, of the series that he'd driven in, it made me go and research something that I actually didn't know was a thing. Which he had 16 F1 race wins as F1 championship race wins. He also competed in the non-championship F1 races as well. I didn't actually realise that Formula One had a selection of races that were kind of denoted as championship races that would count towards the World Drivers' Championship, and races that, I guess, met the criteria of being Formula One, but they were non-championship. So you could win that, but it didn't do you any good in the World Drivers' Championship. That just seems absolutely bizarre. Something maybe I need to look into for another day, because I'd never even come across that before at all until I started looking into him.
I wasn't aware of that either.
And yeah, go on, Brian.
No, I was going to say, the thing that blows my mind, and you're going to get into this as we kind of talk about it, but I'm going to jump the gun a little bit, is he's often regarded as the best race driver to never win the world championship. And I just wanted to highlight a SAP stat, if I could, really fast. And SAP stats. Okay, so I almost got that right. And so in 1955, Sterling Moss finished second in the Drivers' Championship. And we're going to get in, Rob's got a lot of good stories into each of these, but in 56, he was second again. In 57, he was second again. In 58, he was second again, followed by third, and third in 59, 60, and 61. So it's not as though he wasn't close. Holy cow, that is amazing. That is consistent and fantastic. And to me, when the quotes we're going to get into just shows what a brilliant man Sterling Moss was. And I think that's common with the champions we've looked at. Jim Clark, a champion, a brilliant guy, could drive anything. Michael Schumacher, brilliant guy, just had a tremendous career and really made things happen. We talked about Niki Lauda, also a champion, brilliant guy. The way he ran his airline, I mean, afterwards was tremendous. And while Sterling Moss didn't become world champion, you can kind of see he had the opportunity and potentially just couldn't quite make it happen for a variety of reasons, most of which was he was a good guy, and we'll get into that now.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe one of the other things was that just you don't sense from kind of reading through some of the stories that it was all about Formula One and he was so single focused on being World Driver Championship. He just enjoyed driving. So when we say that he finished second like 4 years in the trot and just never seemed to be able to get that F1 title, well, he drove 84 makes of cars across his career. And while he was doing F1, I started listing some of these things out. I don't even know what all of them are, but the types of things that he was active in: F1, championship and non-championship; F3, Le Mans 24 hours, 12 hours of Sebring, 12 hours of Rheims. I'm not going to get this right because it's Italian. The Mille Miglia, Italy's 1,000-mile road race, the Monte Carlo Rally, the Alpine Rally. He won the Gold Cup for 3 consecutive penalty-free runs, which not many people win that. So he's a very talented rally driver as well. The Bathurst 1000, the British Saloon Car Championship, the Nassau Cup, and the RAC Tourist Trophy. I mean, basically, if it had wheels on it and there was a championship or there was an organised race, he raced in it. Formula One was just this other thing that happened to be there that he kind of went along to, and I kind of came second a few times. I mean, and the other thing that kind of sort of I think epitomises him as well is there is a well written about him that they say he was a modern day St George, and he often upheld the honour of England by driving English cars, even though lots of other cars that were far superior at the time, especially German and Italian ones, were available. Yes, he drove those cars, but in the main he stuck to the British cars, or maybe more specifically English. And there's a claim here, I'm not sure you can go back and really validate it, but polls showed that he was as popular as the Queen.
Amazing. That is so cool. I mean, the fact you list those, and by the way, it's Sebring, not Sebring, but that's okay.
Potato.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I can't do any better on the European one. So, just unbelievable that he could drive everything. Sort of, and since we've done, 4 Vale's Tales before, Jim Clarkian, I would say, in his ability to take something with wheels and make it happen fast. Just unbelievably cool that he could do that. And I mean, there are other drivers you can think of. It's not today where that happens, but there are other drivers of the past. Villeneuve, Jacques Villeneuve did that. You can think of Fittipaldi. There's a couple others that we can highlight as we go, but not a lot. It's like a handful of fingers of drivers who could go anywhere around the world, drive anything with, I guess 4 wheels. Some of these, he probably could have done it on motorcycles too, but take 4 wheels and turn them into something amazing. So really cool to see Sterling Moss's ability in different cars, and the fact that he won, as you said, what was it, 212 races of the 529 he entered? That's mental.
It really is. And that kind of, I guess, the British stiff upper lip and being a very kind of having a correct moral compass is probably what led to him also not winning one of those potential F1 titles, because Brian listed off the years that he came second. Now, 1958 is regarded as the year where he came the closest to winning the title. But Mike Hawthorne, another driver, was accused of an infraction of the rules in the Portuguese Grand Prix. And he kind of appealed it. And who went in there and testified on his behalf? Oh, his main rival in the World Championship, Sterling Moss. He went in there, testified that he didn't make that infraction. As a result, Hawthorne wasn't disqualified. And when the season ended, Hawthorne finished on 42 points. They were given points out for different things like fastest lap and various different things, finishing positions like they are today, but there's not much emphasis on winning, because Moss had 4 Grand Prix wins to Hawthorne's 1, but he finished second on just 41 points. And had he not testified and Hawthorne had been disqualified, Moss would have won the title. So I think that kind of shows the character of the man. That I know they sometimes say that some people will say win at all costs, but I kind of like the fact that he didn't.
I love it. So the story is Hawthorne had spun around and was penalized for going backwards on track, driving backwards on the track, in the wrong direction, but he didn't. And Moss had seen it happen. So he felt he had to right this wrong, and as you say, go testify on Hawthorne's behalf, his competitor, which, as you just pointed out, he lost the championship by 1 point. that year. 1 point, and it was to Hawthorne. So, just, I mean, that is, in my mind, defined the man, defined the career, just a tremendous person. And I think everyone realized, there's this thing in stand-up comedy where comedians have like a comedian's comedian, where it's kind of like not the most popular person, but you'll always find the other stand-ups watching. It feels to me, and what I've read and the research we've done, Sterling Moss was the driver's driver. And the other racers, champions or not, competitors, just people who would watch knew he was the real deal. And so to me, all the research we did for this, I thought of him as sort of the driver's, the racer's racer.
Yeah, and kind of the ability to kind of overcome things as well. As we kind of move on to coming towards the sort of tail end of his career in 1960, he won the United States Grand Prix, which, okay, great. That's a good achievement in its own right. But he won the United States Grand Prix 5 months after breaking both legs and his back in Belgium. 5 months.
Yeah.
I mean, the cars back then were nothing like the cars they are now, so I can't imagine they were the smoothest rides. Both legs and his back. That is just
back.
Nuts.
As someone who has broken my back and is a back pain sufferer, I couldn't imagine 5 months after doing that getting into a race car and racing again. I didn't like getting into a regular car and driving again because it hurt. So amazing, Sterling Moss. Again, but he had that strength, that mental fortitude, and a moral compass. He said, I'm going to do this, Niki Lauda style. I don't care if I had to have my lungs vacuumed and my face, mask, the helmet made different from my burnt face. Niki Lauda got in the car. Sterling Moss, when he was able, he got in the car. That is, amazing.
So if we just kind of want to kind of look at his Formula One stats, being as we're kind of just focused on the Formula One aspect at the moment. So he had 66 race starts and won 16 of them. So basically 24% of the races that he entered in F1, he won. He had 16 pole positions, 19 fastest laps, 24 podiums, 35 points finishes, but again, 35 retirements, which is like over 50% of the car races that he drove and he retired from. So the fact that he got anywhere near, and that seems to be the theme when we've looked at this on some of the other drivers from kind of that era, is that if you had those stats now, these days of 50% retirements, you aren't keeping your seat for very long. But
right, or the constructor's leaving, right? I mean, that's just, that's not a thing. But yeah, that's tremendous.
Yeah. But I mean, an absolutely fabulous career, but without ever kind of ultimately picking up the main trophy. In 1962 at Goodwood, he was putting a move on Graham Hill and ploughed into an 8-foot embankment. And it sounds, from reading the descriptions and looking into it, that he must have gone deep into that embankment. It took more than half an hour to basically free him out from the wreckage. And this is this is hardcore now as we kind of go through what happened to the guy. His left eye cheekbone was shattered. His left arm was broken. His left leg was broken in 2 places. And if that wasn't bad enough, when they x-rayed him afterwards, the right side of his brain was detached from his skull. Oh. And he was in a coma for 38 days, paralyzed on one side of his body for 6 months. I mean, that is a shunt. That's a lucky to be coming out of type crash.
Not only that, the fact that it took a half hour to get him free when he had those type of injuries, I just can't imagine the pain he was in. It's said that he remembers nothing of it, though, because of the brain injury. And you found a note here that when he left the hospital, he took all the nurses to dinner and a trip to the theater. The thing, though, that I was reading about him is, he went back a year later to Goodwood and took a car on track to just see if he was ready. And he realized he wasn't acting like himself in the car. He didn't have the feel that he'd had prior, making the instinctive moves. And he said he felt like he lost a page in his book. And so at that point, he said, I'm done. He said, I'm not me anymore in the car. I'm done driving race cars. And he did come out of retirement for races here or there, kind of more fun type stuff. But that was effectively the end of his active racing career.
Yeah, and when we look at some of those guys that drove to kind of older ages, I mean, he was only 33. And he kind of said, he still believed that he was a better driver than all but probably the top 10 in the world. But for him, that wasn't good enough. If I can't be like going to be the best, then there's no point in taking part. So just kind of walked away from it. And, it's got to have been a difficult decision to make, but I think probably one that he had to make. So after racing, he became Sir Stirling Moss in the year 2000 as he was knighted by Prince Charles. I would feel a little bit shortchanged there because you want the Queen to knight you, right?
I mean, you're asking the wrong guy. I don't understand how it works. Do they still do the sword on both sides?
I think they do. They do.
And there's like different versions. There's like OBE, MBE, or MB.
No. A knighthood is a knighthood. You get these other kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah. I get these other gift certificates. I'm going to have alienated the entire UK nation if I call them gift certificates. But you get these letters, and anybody seems to get them these days. But I think a knighthood is the one that you're after, right? And
I don't know. I'll take your word for it.
That's
what I loved
cool.
was super cool, and it well deserved. What I thought was neat is he'd had a long-standing relationship with Mercedes over the years, and in 2008, one of my favorite cars, for those who have listened to the pod from the beginning, I mentioned this. The Mercedes-Benz, the Mercedes McLaren SLR. The final model of it was named the Sir Stirling Moss, the Mercedes McLaren SLR Stirling Moss. It had a top speed of 217, which now in retrospect should have been 212, just to match his career wins. It was just amazing. It had wind deflectors instead of a normal windshield. It was just an amazing car. And about 2 years ago, as of this recording, in a couple days it'll be 2 years ago, is when Sir Stirling Moss passed in April 2020. So I do want to hit, we got the quotes. We want to kind of summarize a bit here, but I'd like to do one first, Rob, and then I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, go for it.
To do the rest. This one's kind of near to my heart. So he was of somewhat Jewish descent. It sounded like his grandfather was Jewish or grandmother. I can't remember now. Stirling Moss, but not. I don't think he was raised particularly religious, but he was subjected, and I read this on one article, so I'm hoping it's accurate. But he was subjected to anti-Semitic bullying because of his Jewish roots when he was a kid, and he concealed this from his parents. But he, in his words, used it as motivation to succeed. I love the fact that he took something like that and basically told the people to basically piss off, and then used it as fuel in the future endeavors. And to me, that was just amazing. And I read that. I'm like, yep, this guy is pretty strong-willed, and I love that.
Yeah, and now we're going to end on. You can take a few of these, Brian, if you like. I just think these are great. So he once said that courage and stupidity were pretty much synonymous. To race a car through a turn at maximum possible speed when there is a great lawn to all sides is difficult, but to race a car at maximum speed through a turn when there is a brick wall on one side and a precipice on the other, now that's an achievement.
He only wore the required helmet, saying he'd preferred a cloth cap.
Yeah, I saw that one. That was awesome. One of my favourite ones is coming up now, which is that he said, why, he wondered, do people walk, since God gave them feet that so nicely fit automotive pedals?
I mean, that is perfect. I have all these friends who run marathons, and I'm always like, cars go 26.2 miles. Why are you running it? And Sir Stirling Moss, a man after my own heart.
Then we get the kind of the adult-themed quote, but don't worry, it's kid-friendly. He said, there are two things that no man will ever admit that he cannot do well: drive and make love. I tell you what, Stirling Moss should have been James Bond. Maybe it's
basically, yeah.
Come on, you can take the next one, Brian.
It is. He said, "It is. This is so great. It is better to go into a corner slow and come out fast than to go in fast and come out dead." Yeah.
But he was also a great kind of student, and all those people would kind of say that he was like, "Oh, you're one of the greatest drivers," and he would say, "No, I'm not." And I think he said that the best classroom of all time was about 2 car lengths behind Juan Manuel Fangio. I think that's an awesome quote. It's like, I'm learning more following this guy, and that's the best education I'm ever going to get in racing.
and I know we've said this a couple times, we got to do a Vale's Tales on Fangio. I know when we hit that in a different topic and all of the different teams he won championships with, and then the kidnapping and a whole deal. So that may be a next Vale's Tale, I think, for us.
But the last one, and I just like the use of, because he was very good in his use of the English language, and it's a very English word to use in the end of this one. But he said, to achieve anything in this game, you must prepare to dabble in the boundary of disaster. Dabble with disaster. I
love it.
And there were loads more. I mean, we just kind of cut out our favourites there. But I mean, he just seemed to be one of these born to race guys that would race anything, race it hard, had just natural instinct for the car. I mean, the piece that you were talking about earlier where he said that he just, when he went back to the car after that big accident and felt like he'd lost a page, I was reading somewhere else that he just basically said that he's a racer, but he's a racer inside his body. He doesn't know how. He said when he perfectly gets in the zone, it's almost like he's in a helicopter watching the car down below. It's just autopilot. And what he felt that he lost after that accident was he wasn't making those kind of like subconscious moves in the car. The car wasn't steering itself anymore because, yeah, guess what? It was never steering itself. It was always you and your insane amount of ability that was just so natural that I guess once that was gone, you can understand why he stepped away. But hope we kind of did him justice there, going through that career, an amazing career, not just F1 focused. And yeah, definitely by the looks of things, the greatest driver to have never won the F1 title.
So Sterling Moss, we lost him 2 years ago. Amazing guy. Rob, thank you. That was an amazing Vale's Tales. Let's kind of get back to the season so far. Obviously, no race this weekend. But you know, one of the things that we kind of talked about was fantasy. So let's do a quick fantasy and season recap. And I would just love to say thank you to everyone who joined the Dirty Side Fantasy League. Week 1 winner was Mark E. of Team Shuey. He was actually also on one of our 100 Seconds of DRS. Also tied with Mark in Week 1 was me. That's fine. Rob's making a face. I'll just move on. And then the amazing Jillian of Nothing to Lewis. I can't tell, Jillian, when you joined exactly, because you actually beat both Mark and myself, but I didn't see you on the Week 1 closeout, but now I see you there. So if you were there and beat both Mark and myself, apologies for not getting that correct. I couldn't tell if you transferred in like right as it happened. All I know is Jillian, Mark, myself had great first weeks and just amazing stuff. And then Week 2, a monster for Liam D. of Winner Chicken Dinner, 313 points. Holy cow. So the overall leaders after 2 weeks is Liam D. of Winner Chicken Dinner with 520 points at this point. I would like to point out 3 things. One, Rob beat me in Week 2. You beat me pretty good in Week 2. So kudos to you, Rob, for beating me.
That's
in Saudi Arabia.
1-1. That's one race victory each, right? Okay.
Correct, yes. However, in terms of where we stand after 2 weeks cumulative, I'm in 6th place, which is viewable on the front of the leaderboard page. And then when you scroll for a little bit, you get to Rob at 21st. I have 470 points, so not too far behind Liam's 520. Rob has 403, which is over 100 points behind Liam's 520. So I just wanted to mention that.
Whoa.
Yeah, just
Hang on a
mentioning
second.
that, Rob.
Your 470 to Liam's 520 is 50 points, and that's close in your book, right? But
yeah,
me
10%.
being 67 behind you, which is not much bigger than 50, that's suddenly a big gulf.
I mean, 6th to 21st place. I had to scroll. Do you
lot
want
of
me to
people.
record the amount of time I had to scroll down to find you? If we can do that, if you like.
I'm just
buddy.
saying, you're popping your champagne early. That's all I'm saying, Brian. It's going to be flat by the end of the season.
Oh, we'll be drunk by today. I would just say this as well. I found a site. I'm the most open, transparent person. It's www.f1fantasytracker.com. And they list the prices of the drivers, and then the part I enjoy, quite frankly, is the points per $1 million. So points per cost. And so it's really fun to kind of check that out and see. So I hope that if you all are looking, it's a resource to kind of help you out. But that said, Rob, we've had 2 races so far in 2022 of the potential 23. Are there things you'd like to highlight that you've kind of learned so far?
Yeah, we kind of both said we're going to pull a couple of things out each, right? So my first is just going to be how disappointed I am in McLaren. I mean, not much more to add than that. It was looking so good, and then very, very quickly it wasn't, and I had to dump Danny Rick from my fantasy team because I just, at the 11th hour on the opening weekend, because I just couldn't see where any pace was coming from. And here we are 2 races in, and I'm still not seeing it. So that's mine. Just how underwhelming McLaren have been so far.
You know, I'd agree with you. I think it's interesting to me. They looked good in the Spain testing.
Yeah.
And then some struggles in Bahrain as they, Ricardo was out with COVID and they were trying to get the brake heating situation right. And then the first race, a lot of slow speed corners in Bahrain. And we said, oh, that's the reason why they struggled. It'll be much better in Saudi Arabia, high speed track. And then Danny Rick didn't finish. He pulled over on the side. And then Lando did get close to Ocon for 6th, but we hadn't seen him the whole race. I think he benefited from some pit stops. So that was curious. I would say this, my takeaway is maybe a click up on that, on McLaren, is the Mercedes powertrains are not good. I mean, let's not mince words here. They're a lucky second, Mercedes, the constructor, a lucky second, 1 point ahead of Red Bull at this point. 38 points Mercedes, 37 points Red Bull. Red Bull didn't have any cars finish the first race. So that is not really a second place. They're just holding it for a minute. Mercedes customer teams are the bottom 3. Williams is sitting on 0, powered by Mercedes. Aston Martin is sitting on 0, powered by Mercedes. And McLaren is sitting on 6, powered by Mercedes. Those are the bottom 3 teams. AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Haas are above them in that order. So I know they say it's not all just the powertrain, the aero package and the ground effect they're running and the way it's struck. The bottom 3 teams are all Mercedes. It means something to me. So, and obviously Ferrari's good, and we're seeing some, just if there's more consistency from Haas and Alfa Romeo, just to continue that. And the last thing I have kind of on this first theme here around where is Mercedes, there's someone out there that may be in the witness protection program.
George!
Where we haven't barely heard about George Russell. He's, I want to hear more. The young guy moves to Mercedes, and because the team has been so bad, we rarely get any coverage. And the person, by the way, who yelled at Alex Albon, we don't get any coverage of either, except when he did a dive bomb into Lance at the end of the Saudi GP. So for me, it's just the Mercedes as a whole, really surprised. Everyone who said they were sandbagging it, you were wrong. Mercedes really does have some problems. Now, I anticipate them fixing it. Just a matter of when.
Yep, and then my second one that I'm pleasantly surprised at, because despite the fact that I'd gone big on it on the Crystal Ball episode on the predictions, is I'm pleasantly surprised by Haas. I know I made the prediction, but I'm not sure if I honestly believed that I was going to be. I just wanted to be out there and kind of say, yeah, I believe in Haas. Now, I couldn't have foreseen at that time that K-Mag would be part of it, and that kind of skews my prediction a little bit, because I think that has made a big difference, and that's maybe where my surprise comes in here as to how maybe the dynamic of a team having a vet with a kind of a rookie is a good partnership. And I'm going to do a U here and kind of have 2 things in my one bullet point, because that's what you like to do, which is I'm actually pleasantly surprised by what I think is the same thing happening over at Alfa Romeo, with Valtteri as kind of that kind of mentor veteran driver. And I think those 2 teams, I hope it's not just a flash in the pan in the first 2 weeks, and we're going to see those 2 kind of trying to be the best of the rest after the other guys up the front. So yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised that it does seem to be going in the right direction for Haas at the moment, and Alpha.
Yeah, agreed. You did make that, especially the Haas call. You said over 30 points for the year, and I thought you were a little silly on that. We both agreed they'd be better because of the time spent developing the car, but I don't think anyone saw them this much better.
They've got 12, I think, at the moment, right? So I'm nearly at halfway after 2 races, but
yeah.
We'll see. 30,
and,
I don't
and
think
Mick,
sounds...
Mick didn't even race. Mick didn't even race in Saudi Arabia. So, and then, my last one is that, and no surprise, I'd like to talk a little bit about tires. So just the tires are a mess right now. The wheels are bigger, the tires are bigger. Everyone keeps saying it's going to be different. What we saw at Jeddah, they didn't even use the softs during the race. As we joked about in our last review, 9 laps left, Lewis came into pit and they didn't put him on softs. I mean, that's something is wrong with the soft tire if it can't last 9 laps. So, yes, they're used in quali. They're basically becoming a quali tire since you don't have to use it in the race anymore. And now it's just a big bunch of people trying to figure out, and I recognize the compound may be different of each race, but is it the medium? Is it the hard? What are we going to do for pit stops? I feel like there's so much going into the strategy now that my takeaway is just keep watching, because the strategic move on when and what the pit stops happen and what they put on is going to be different. And I think that's going to really spice things up a little. And people may not, think of it that way, or they may not appreciate it. But when you see teams making pit stop decisions, calling box, whether it's the fake out from Ferrari to overtake or whatever, and the tires they choose will actually change the way the races are run. And I'm excited for that. So that's my last takeaway. I do, however, have a couple SAP stats for the year. So let's SAP stats.
Say it like you mean it, Brian. Come on.
SAP stat. Okay, so Charles Leclerc has both fastest laps so far this year. I found that interesting. There have only been 2 teams who have led a lap so far this year, Red Bull and Ferrari. No one else has led a full lap. Charles has led 85 laps. Sergio's led 14. Carlos has led 2. And Max, I didn't do them in order, Max has led 6. However, Max was nipping at the heels in the first race and won the second race and has only led 6 laps this year. So when they get the pace, even stronger and he can lead more, just watch out. And of the 20 drivers in the 2 races so far, 8 have retired, and 1 did not start, which gives us only 3 teams have started and finished each race: Ferrari, Mercedes, and Aston Martin. I just thought that was interesting as you kind of plan your fantasy teams. Recognize Ferrari, Mercedes, and Aston Martin have started and finished both cars, both races so far.
And I'm not going to be rushing out for Aston Martin unless we get some
huge... Seb. You just said you were excited to have Seb back.
I'm happy to see him back. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go and ditch Ferrari and bring Aston in, because maybe they'll finish a race.
Put Seb in your fantasy lineup.
Oh, I see. Now it's starting the mind games. Yeah. Right. We need to preview Australia and then move on to the final main event that we have today. So, Australia, the land down under, home of Mark, the inaugural 100 Seconds of DRS guest. Many things from Australia.
Danny Rick, the shoey. Also, in my mind, famous for what happened in 2020, which was when the world stopped for COVID. It looked like F1 was going to keep trying to race until, I think it was a McLaren team member tested positive, and then they called the race basically the day before. A couple notes, though, that I think are important. The track has been widened in a lot of places this year, and actually a chicane has been taken out. So it's a 3.2-mile track. There are 2 less turns than there have been since the last race in 2019. It was the last time we've raced there. The fastest lap is Schumacher in 2004. They've had 24 races there. Schumacher has the most wins there with 4. And the most successful manufacturer or constructor in terms of wins, Ferrari, with 8. And the last thing I'd say, the last race there, 2019 that I referenced, Valtteri won that one. So it's a fast track. It's going to be pretty darn cool. I mean, I'm always excited by it in the Albert Park area there. It's kind of fun to watch.
Okay, so I'm going to risk annoying you and annoying Mark. I was looking for, greatest ever Australian race to sort of throw some kind of look backs here, and it's not really ever delivered on a consistent basis great races. I think it usually was, we were all hyped up and ready to go because they usually were the season opener. So you didn't really care what the racing was because, F1's back. And it was just that you were on the adrenaline, so it kind of didn't matter. I found some interviews where really Danny Rick talks the track up because I think he kind of has to, otherwise they take his passport away. And others kind of went, it's a cool track, but it's got a lot of, most of its corners are slow and medium slow, so it's very technical. And when you hear drivers say that, what they're really saying is it's not very good. But if they've widened it, which allows them to kind of, I think, attack apexes from a wider angle, have more visibility around the corners, and if they've got rid of 2 of the slower corners, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll get a fresh of breath air? That's not right. A breath of fresh air this year. So I'm willing to, I'm happy it's back on the calendar, happy to see it again. It's just kind of tentatively excited because we've had 2 good races so far. We're following it up with one that hasn't traditionally been the best of races.
I understand, but they have widened a good number of the corners for that reason. They took out a chicane, which was, I think, turns 10 and 11 or something like that, and it should enable more speed and passing opportunities.
We shall hope so.
And, Rob, for you, buddy, just so you know, in 2019, the last time it was run, Sebastian Vettel finished 4th. Get him in your lineup.
Well, definitely, yeah. I'm going to get Vettel in. I'm going to go all in on Stroll, Aston as the... yeah, definitely. I might Mega Drive a Vettel this weekend.
If you Mega Drive Vettel this coming weekend, I'll give you 10 American dollars.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
No, I actually would. I would send you $10 just to crash your lineup. The last thing is just, again, the time. For everyone's benefit, the time of the race is Central Time, midnight. On Saturday night, Sunday morning, midnight, 1 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, that thing launches. So I have not yet figured out how I'm going to watch it, whether it's, try to stay up that late and make it through, or just watch it in the morning. I should try to stay up and make it through, but I'm old now, man. Midnight is like prime sleeping time.
We should both make a pact that if one of us gets up, we both get up, Brian.
I mean, get up. I mean, stay up is what it is.
Well, stay up. Yeah, I'm not going to do the old man thing of go to bed at 9 o'clock and get up at 1 a.m.
Don't do that. If you do that, we're done with the podcast.
I've just got to drink all the way through till it starts, right?
Well, that's what a man would do. If you're going to go to bed and take a nap and come back up, the podcast is over. We're not recording anymore if you do that crap.
Well, okay, right.
Okay. So, now we have a chance to move on to something we've been kind of planning for a while. It is America's leading Formula One podcast, and this is America's favorite game show, Brian versus Rob, and F1 Fake Facts. We're going to try it out today and see how we can do with fake facts. What we've done, in the spirit of entertainment and trying to confuse each other, is come up with 2 real facts and 1 fake fact. And we're going to have 3 rounds where we propose to each other 3 facts. Again, 2 of them are real, 1 of them is fake. The person has to find the fake fact. Find the fake fact. Rob, would you like to go first, or shall I?
Well, I will go first. Thank you, Brian. I will let me go for my first one here. So are you ready, sir, to take on my first set of items, which are all collected around the Monaco Grand Prix, which, God forbid, gets Americanized and gets too glitzy. But talking of glitz, fact number 1. Okay. 175,000 worth of diamonds were lost in an F1 crash at Monaco.
I believe that's true. I know I'm not supposed to answer, but I believe...
Wait.
All right, I'll hold it.
Fact number 2. Monaco has to employ people to go around and individually weld shut every single manhole cover every year on the track. Fact number 3. The casino makes more money in the race week than it does for the rest of the year combined. Which one is the fake fact, Brian?
So I don't want to be the guy on the game show who analyzes too much, but I would say I'm fairly certain number 1 is correct, or at least I remember there being diamonds on the nose of a car, and they were lost in a crash, or were they lost? I think that's true. I don't know the dollar amount, so if you're going to get me on changing the dollar amount, then you got me. Number 2 is they do have to weld down the covers, right? I mean, they do that on regular drainage covers on the regular track, so I would assume they have to do that. I mean, or else wouldn't those pop up? I mean, I watched that horrible movie Driven with Sylvester Stallone, and they drove around Chicago in Indy cars, and the manhole covers were coming up. So I'm going to say that's true. And then the last one you had was about the casinos making money. I feel like Monaco is such a popular place that it may not necessarily be just the F1 race week where they make the most. So I'm going to say number 3 is fake.
Well done. You need to do your clapping sound thing. Yeah, you did uncover the fake fact. I thought I'd ease you in on an easy one.
Yes!
Marv Albert with the yes for me.
So just to go back to that first one, the 2004 Monaco Grand Prix, Jaguar Racing Team partnered up with the film's Ocean 12 as a sponsor to promote the film at the race. And they had the nose of each, Mark Webber and Christian Klein had diamonds fitted into the nose, and Klein binned it. And the story goes that they never recovered the diamond. Now, whether or not they really put a diamond on there knowing that there's a high chance of cars crashing, who knows? But it's a nice story that, in theory, yes, very high worth diamond was lost as he binned his car into... someone went home with it in their pocket, right?
Someone did, yeah. Now that would be a great way to go watch a race. You walk out with $150,000 and a diamond in your pocket. All right, Rob, are you ready, sir?
Hit me up.
All right. Here we go. Number 1, Paolo Barilla, who raced for Minardi in 1989 and 90, is the son of Pietro Barilla, who founded the Barilla Pasta Company. Paolo, the driver, is now the deputy chairman of the Barilla Pasta Company. Number 2, Nigel Mansell is famously born of humble roots and has an amazing mustache, but that's not part of the fact. He still owns a farm in Chadlington, in Oxfordshire, and I'm probably mispronounced that, England, that has over 300 sheep on it to this day, although he does not live there full-time. And number 3, Lewis Hamilton once performed under the name XDNA on the Christina Aguilera song Pipe.
Oh man, you've gone random, haven't you? Now, I'm not going to overanalyze. I'm just going to go straight in and say that I think you're trying to double bluff me by coming up with something that you wouldn't possibly know anything about from the UK. I'm going to say that Nigel Mansell doesn't own pigs.
Well, they're sheep, but you are correct.
What?
You
Yes!
nailed it. That is correct.
Yes!
You are right. Nigel Mansell, I made that up. So Barilla, or Berea, I never get it right. He actually did race for Minardi and is now the deputy chairman, son of the founder of the massive pasta company. How amazing is that? And then apparently Lewis Hamilton performed under that name with Christina Aguilera on a song once. You know he enjoys things outside of racing. And I totally made up the Nigel Mansell one. And I used the town where Jeremy Clarkson records Clarkson's Farm to give me the location
okay.
of Chadlington.
That's why that kind of... okay. I watched that show and the name didn't jump at me. Maybe subconsciously it did, Brian.
All right,
Okay.
well, this is hot. Now I'm getting sweaty palms here.
Right.
We're 1-1. I don't want to lose.
Okay.
Okay.
Fact number 2, and these are 3 facts about Indian driver Narain Karthikeyan.
I'm already in trouble. Here we go.
Okay,
This is
here
gonna
he
be
is.
hard. Yeah.
While the first Indian driver to compete in Formula 1, he's also the only Indian driver to compete in Formula 1 for more than 1 full season and not score a point. Fact
Wait,
number 1.
what? How many? Wait. Say the second part again with all the qualifications to it.
Okay, I'll strip it down to its bare the question. The only Indian driver to compete in more than 1 full F1 season and not score a single point.
Meaning running under the Indian flag?
Oh, I don't look. Just take the fact for what it is. He's an Indian driver.
Well, I mean, there are people who run under flags. Okay, keep going.
My gosh, you're really competitive trying to look for any out on this.
I think I would. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to say.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
He once got into an altercation with Sebastian Vettel and called him a crybaby to his face. Okay.
Okay.
He is the first foreign driver to win the NASCAR Camping Truck Series.
Huh? All right.
Those are your 3.
I'm in deep trouble here. This is, if I could find a lifeline, I would. I'm sitting here thinking. I mean, it's just random at this point. I'm going to have to stop. No whammies. I'm going to say number 3.
Which was
Camping
the,
Truck Series.
Wow, 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 wow.
Actually, I have one of those too. Oh, so sad.
He did call Vettel a crybaby. He did win the NASCAR Camping Truck Series, and he did quite well in Formula 1. He did score points, so he was not the first Indian to not score a single point because he scored quite a few.
Oh, I I didn't understand the qualifications to it.
Oh, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
No,
your
I
tears,
lost.
your
I
tears
lost.
are steaming up the mic.
I'm one for 2. Boy, I'm in trouble. All right, here we go. Jolyon Palmer, who's now part of F1 TV and drove in F1, was once part of a band in university called the Singing Sennas. Part vocal group, part folk rock. He will admit about it to this day, but he does not bring it up unless asked. He said, I was a kid, we had fun, we're just not that good. Number 2. Jensen Button raced with 3 members of the Verstappen family. Max's mom, Sophie, in karting. Max's dad, Jos in F1, and of course Max in F1. Or number 3. Alain Prost won the first race of Senna's career. Senna won Prost's last race of his career. Senna won the first race of Schumacher's career, and Schumacher won Senna's last race. Schumacher won first race of Button's career, and Button won Schumacher's last race. Yeah, I know.
What? I just feel like I've had to do Sudoku. What? Okay, so we've got the Senna singers, we've got lots and lots of racers winning each other's first and last, and the one in the middle was the one about the Verstappen family, right?
Yeah, and Button racing with all the members of it, effectively.
Yeah. I'm going to say that's the fake one.
Which one, number 2?
Yeah, Button and...
That is accurate. So first of all, the Prost, Senna, Schumacher, Button, they all did win and raced in the first and then won the last, and that's true. Jenson Button did race in karting with Sophie Marie Kumpen, who's Max's mom. She was on the team and drove karting. I know, but how cool is it that he raced in karting? Jenson raced with Max's mom, and then in F1 raced with both Max's dad, and then a slight overlap with Max as well. And then I totally made up the Julian Palmer thing. That there's no
that was
accuracy.
just stupid enough to be real, you see.
Yeah,
Okay,
you see.
all square going into my last one for you then.
All right.
Okay.
Fired up. Here we go.
Here we go.
Still got a chance.
So, both a Swiss Baron and a Thai Prince have competed in Formula One. That's your first one. Second one, all of the Schumacher drivers have won a junior championship. That's number 2. Number 3, every driver with the name Hill has been a world champion.
Huh. Crap. so the Hill thing, right? We know Graham and Damon, one of the father-son combos, who both are world champions. And then Phil Hill, the U.S. driver, won as well. But I don't know about any other Hills. So that's open. And then a Thai Prince and a
Thai Prince and a Swiss Baron.
Swiss Baron have competed. I don't know. Sure, why not? And then what was the other one?
All of the Schumacher drivers have won a junior championship.
So Michael, Ralph, David, and Mick? Is what I'm supposed to believe there? I'm gonna say the Schumacher one is fake. I'm correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Yes!
So, you name the Hill champions. They've all won one. Where are we? Prince Bira and Baron Emmanuel Tullio de Graffenfried in the 50s competed as... all of them bar David. Ralph's son is the one that's let the Schumachers down. Everyone else has won either karting or some kind of junior championship, but David is doesn't look like he's the best driver, and he's not really trouble in the top of the leaderboard. Damn you for knowing about David!
I mean, at the end of the day, someone has to be impressed with what I'm just pulling off the top of my head here with people.
Have you got a second screen with Google open? That's what I'm just saying.
No,
who's even heard of David? Ralph's son.
What do you do at 2 a.m? You don't do research on Formula One?
Well, you look at tires. But anyway, come on, give me my last one.
Here we go. On August 20th, this is number 1. On August 23rd, 1995, Giancarlo Fisichella, 22 at the time, got into a fight in Monaco and was sentenced for breaking a hotel concierge's nose for giving a bad restaurant recommendation to him and his girlfriend, Italian model Anna Falchi, F-A-L-C-H-I. 2. On 9 January 2014, Eddie Irvine was sentenced to 6 months in prison in Italy after being found guilty of mutual injury following a brawl in a nightclub in Milan. A brawl with the former mayor of Milan's son, Gabriele Moratti. Number 3. Charles Leclerc owns 10% of a racehorse. He shares it with basketball player, now retired, Tony Parker. The horse is called Afghani.
Okay. I'm going to say that... damn it! I'm going to say that the third one is... I'm going to pick the falsie out of the two fights because they feel too similar. Like, one of the fights is not right. I'm gonna back Eddie Irvine's fiery Northern Irish character for probably getting him into hot bother and having a fight. So I'm gonna say Fisichella didn't have the fisticuffs.
Yes!
You are correct.
Pulled it out the fire under pressure.
Very nice. Very well played. So Eddie Irvine did get in a massive fight in Milan with the mayor's son. I believe the sentence was suspended. And Charles does own 10% of a racehorse with Tony Parker, who's from France, played for the Spurs for a long time. And it is called Afghani, so that is correct. We tied. I mean, I don't have a thing for tying, so we're just going to all get some applause here at this point.
we really need to think through what our tie-break situation is, because we honestly believe that one of us would mess up and not do that. So we pulled a tie out of the fire. So we've done what Ferrari couldn't do when they tried to do the synchronized first and second across the line at the same time.
Right.
We pulled off an equal first, both at the top of this podium, Brian.
I think that's fine. I did have a fourth for you, which maybe we'll do with no consequence, just for fun.
Go on,
I
then.
did too many. So we end with a tie. We both stand atop the podium. Same bottle of Winner's Champagne. And now we can move to number 4. An extra credit for Rob. Here we go. Number 1. On May 2nd, 2000, while on a private plane, David Coulthard and his then-fiancée Heidi Wilczynski and his personal trainer survived a plane crash, making an emergency landing in Nice. The pilot and co-pilot did not survive. They passed away in that crash. Number 2. Seconds after Sebastian Vettel's F1 career started in the U.S. in 2017, 2006, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. He immediately committed a penalty. He broke the pit lane speed limit in his first race, seconds into his career. And then number 3, Kimi Räikkönen is famously Finnish and famously quiet. However, with no fanfare, he's donated over 1 million euros to charities helping kids with disabilities, single moms, and underprivileged youth in racing across Finland. The charity is run by his wife and called Kimi Cares, both with a K.
Oh man, see now, I thought I was happy to say whatever your third one was the lie, right? Because I thought that the air crash one feels a little bit too severe to have made up. I think I remember and know that Vettel got that penalty, like, for speed in the pit lane the moment he kind of pulled out the garage. I'm almost sure he holds the record for the fastest ever penalty. So I was thinking whatever is third is false. But Kim is such a nice guy. How could he not do all of that? Maybe it's not called Kimi Cares, and that's the I'm still gonna have to go with my gut, which was whatever came out of your mouth for fact number 3 was going to be the fake one.
Yes!
You get the extra credit. Now let me explain. Give me a second to explain. So it is true. David Coulthard did survive a plane crash in Nice, which is crazy in 2000. And the pilots passed. I mean, that was a bad crash. And I did check that for accuracy. You're right. We both, I think, knew that. One of the fastest penalties ever, if not the fastest penalty ever to start a career, was Vettel. And let me explain why Kimi's is fake. I started it this way and I finished it, and then it turns out he actually does a lot of charitable work. It's just not with kids with disabilities, single moms, and underprivileged youth racing. It's not called Kimi Cares.
Okay.
But I want to clarify, because I don't want people to think Kimi is not charitable, because Kimi knows what he's doing.
Just leave me alone, I know what to do.
So he is famously quiet. And he did say this: I do a lot of charity work, but I never tell anybody. I'm not the type that does things to get my name in the newspaper. I'd rather say nothing and be in the background. I always try to keep quiet. No one needs to know, because that's not the point of helping somebody. It's more about helping. I don't want anything out of it. Make me feel better. And
why he wouldn't have called it Kimi Cares, because he wouldn't have wanted everybody to know. And that's why I went with the fake.
You're right. And so Kimi is a very generous person who gives back a lot, just not through a made-up charity to groups he doesn't necessarily help focus on. Kimi Cares is fake.
Well, I think that was a good start to Rob versus Brian. I think we do need to work on the format. We need a tiebreaker, because no one likes a tie. But for today, I will stand on the top of the podium with you.
I would stand on the podium with you as well. And if we can find where that diamond is, I feel like this would actually be a great heist movie. Go look for that diamond.
It's not so much of a heist, really, if you've just got to find it on the floor. But okay, let's. It could be a great road trip movie. Rob and Brian go to Monaco on the hunt for the missing diamond. It's got some kind of one of my dinosaurs is missing Disney type film about it. But
totally.
Okay, we can't keep going on now. We've got serious business to get in the zone ready for race week again next week, or as I know you like to call it. Come on. Give me the Ferrari line.
Rowie Keek. I'm going to send out I'm going to get something on Twitter this week if I have some time to make up a little picture. But yeah, I would just say thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Next week we'll be reviewing the Australian Grand Prix. Feel free to let us know how and when and where you'll be watching it. We're going to do the same on Twitter at F1 Dirty Side. We'll figure something out. We always appreciate your participation. You guys are the best, and the reason we have so much fun. Be well, be safe, have fun, be kind. Rob, close us out, man.
Yep, sign up for 100 seconds of DRS if you want to be on the show and become worldwide famous. And until then, take it easy. We'll catch you next week.